In all stages of our history, women have been struggling through a second-class life. It wasn't just that women didn't have the right to vote or that they didn't get equal pay.
The image of a woman during World War II was Rosie the Riveter. The 1950s female ideal became Susie Homemaker.
We were always told about the men behind bars and the acts that reached them there. Join us as we learn about the most dangerous and famous female outlaws of the Wild West, Pearl Hart. Pearl Hart, born as Pearl Taylor in the early 1870s, is best known as one of the few female stagecoach robbers in the American Wild West. Born in Ontario, Canada, Hart's early life was relatively uneventful until she married an abusive gambler, which led to her becoming involved in petty crime. After leaving her husband, she ventured to the American West, seeking a new life and opportunities. In May 1899, Pearl Hart, alongside her partner Joe Boot, held up a stagecoach near Globe, Arizona. Disguised in men's clothing, she managed to rob the passengers of their valuables and money. This brave act marked her place in the history of Wild West history. After their crime, Hart and Boot attempted to escape but were quickly captured due to their poor planning and Hart's distinct appearance. During her trial, she became something of a media sensation, with newspapers calling her the Arizona Bandit. Pearl Hart's trial was known for her articulate defense and her plea for leniency on the grounds of supporting her ailing mother. Despite her efforts, she was sentenced to 7 years in prison. During her incarceration at the Yuma Territorial Prison, Hart continued to garner attention. She became the center of a public debate over the treatment of female prisoners and even gained sympathy from the public and the press, and while behind bars, she became pregnant, which was another twist to her story. Hart's story after her release is filled with mystery. Some stories suggest she continued a life of crime, while others claim she settled into mystery away from the limelight. Eleanor Dumont, Madame Moustache. Eleanor Dumont, famously known as Madame Moustache, was a well-known gambler and entrepreneur in the Old West. Born in New Orleans in 1829, she quickly adapted to the rough and difficult life of the American frontier, becoming a skilled card dealer and a smart businesswoman. Dumont's nickname, Madame Moustache, came from her noticeable facial hair, which set her apart from other women of her era. Her first notable venture was in San Francisco, where she opened a gambling parlor called 21. Her establishment catered to wealthy miners and businessmen, and she quickly gained a reputation for her charm and her ability to control a room. Eleanor Dumont's gambling career took her across the American West, from California to Nevada, Idaho, and Montana. She was known for her elegance, always dressed in fine clothes and maintaining an air of sophistication. Despite the rough environment, Dumont upheld a strict code of conduct in her establishments, refusing to allow drunkenness or cheating. In the 1860s, Dumont opened another successful gambling house in Nevada City, California. Here, she became a local celebrity, attracting patrons from miles around. Her financial success, however, was not without its challenges. Dumont's fortunes fluctuated with the economic tides of the mining towns she frequented. She met Jack McKnight, who swept her off her feet. A handsome, well-dressed man, who was a smooth talker who claimed to be a cattle buyer, Eleanor was instantly infatuated. However, McKnight was actually a conman who made his living swindling others. Less than a month later, he disappeared with all her money, had sold her ranch, and left her with all the outstanding debts. She went after the man, tracked him down, and opened up on him with a double blast from a shotgun. Suspected of the crime, she was never charged and denied responsibility. Years later, however, she allegedly confessed to killing him. As the mining boom died down, Dumont's luck began to decline. She turned to heavy drinking and made increasingly risky bets, leading to huge financial losses. In her later years, she wandered from town to town, relying on her reputation to sustain herself. Her life ended tragically in 1879 when she took her own life by a mix of alcohol and morphine after a particularly devastating gambling loss. Lillian Frances Smith. Lillian Frances Smith, born in 1871, was a known sharpshooter and performer in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. Known as the Indian Princess, Smith was a contemporary and rival of the famous Annie Oakley. Her skill with firearms, flamboyant personality, and competitive spirit made her a standout figure in the world of Wild West entertainment. At age 9, she asked her father Levi for a little rifle to play with. Soon, Levi began offering $5,000 to anyone who could beat her, including Doc Carver, one of the era's best-known marksmen, who ironically didn't show up in St. Louis for the competition. By the age of 15, she had joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, where she captured audiences' attention with her shooting skill. Smith was known for her ability to hit targets with remarkable accuracy, even while performing on horseback or using a mirror to aim. Unlike Annie Oakley, who portrayed a more demure and modest image, Smith was bold and outspoken. She often wore flashy costumes and was not shy about promoting her own abilities. This rivalry with Oakley was well publicized, with Smith frequently challenging Oakley's title as the premier female sharpshooter of the time. Despite her talents, Smith's career with Buffalo Bill's show was short-lived. Her brash demeanor and conflicts with other performers led to her departure from the show. However, she continued to perform in other Wild West shows and exhibitions, maintaining her status as one of the era's most skilled marksmen. But eventually, in 1889, she left the show and Oakley was brought back in. In 1907, Smith moved permanently to Oklahoma and became a fixture with the Miller Brothers 101 Ranch Wild West show, performing as Princess Winona, a fictionalized Sioux princess. However, she continued to perform in other shows like Pawnee Bills. After another 13 years as a record-setting sharpshooter and performer, Smith retired around 1925. However, she remained a prominent figure in Wild West lore until her death in 1930. By her wishes, she was buried in her Sioux costume. Rose Dunn. Rose Dunn, also known as Rose of Cimarron, was an infamous outlaw associated with the Dalton Gang. Born in 1878 in Oklahoma, Dunn was the youngest of 10 children in a family familiar with the ways of the West. Her brothers, who were themselves involved in criminal activities, introduced her to the Dalton Gang, who were a criminal syndicate operating in Kansas. Dunn became romantically involved with George Bittercreek Newcomb, a member of the Dalton Gang. Her association with Newcomb and the gang led her to participate in their criminal endeavors, which included bank robberies, train heists, and other illegal activities. Despite her young age, Dunn proved to be a valuable asset to the gang, often providing them with food, shelter, and crucial information. One of Rose Dunn's most notable exploits occurred during a shootout between the Dalton Gang and law enforcement. Dunn is said to have bravely entered the fray, supplying Newcomb with ammunition and assisting the gang in their escape. This act of loyalty and courage solidified her reputation as a fearless and dedicated outlaw. But Dunn's brothers betrayed Newcomb to the authority, which led to the fall of the Outlaws. After the incident, she lived a quiet and respectable life after marrying a distinguished Oklahoma politician, rarely speaking about her days with the Dalton Gang. Dunn passed away in 1955, leaving behind a legacy of adventure and rebellion. Kate Horney. Kate Horney, widely known as Big Nose Kate, was a great figure in the Wild West, primarily recognized for her association with the famous gunslinger Doc Holliday. Born as Mary Catherine Horney in Hungary in 1850, Kate immigrated to the United States with her family at a young age. After her parents' deaths, she faced a disturbed childhood, eventually finding herself in the American West. At age 16, she ran away from her foster home and was later found that she married a dentist and also had a son who both died due to yellow fever. Kate's life took a significant turn when she met Doc Holliday in Fort Griffin, Texas. The two developed a close relationship that lasted despite Holliday's famous reputation and frequent run-ins with the law. Known for her fiery temper and independent spirit, Kate often found herself involved in Holliday's escapades. One of the most famous incidents involving Big Nose Kate occurred in Tombstone, Arizona, where Holliday and the Earp brothers were involved in the infamous gunfight at the OK Corral. Although Kate was not present at the gunfight, her connection to Holliday placed her at the heart of the drama that unfolded in its aftermath. She supported Holliday through his legal battles and helped care for him during his time of illness. Despite her loyalty to Holliday, Kate's life was marked by periods of separation and reconciliation with him. She was known for her resourcefulness and adaptability, often working as a prostitute, a boarding house keeper, and even a nurse to support herself. Her sharp wit and strong will earned her the nickname Big Nose Kate, though accounts of her appearance have differed. After Holliday's death in 1887, Kate's life continued to be a mix of hardship and perseverance. She married several times and struggled with poverty and alcoholism. In her later years, she settled in Arizona, where she worked as a housekeeper and took care of elderly men. Kate eventually moved to the Arizona Pioneers Home, where she spent her final days. Sally Skull. Sally Skull was a famous figure in Texas during the mid-19th century, known for her skills as a horse trader, rancher, and suspected Confederate spy. Born Sarah Jane Newman around 1817, she grew up in the Texas frontier, a place where survival required toughness and resourcefulness. Sally's first marriage was to Jesse Robinson, but after his death, she married George Skull, whose name she would carry with her into shame. Her reputation began to grow due to her skill in horse trading, an essential and often dangerous trade in the West. Sally was known for her exceptional horsemanship and her uncanny ability to drive a hard bargain, often leaving men outwitted and outmatched in their dealings with her. Her life was marked by violence and controversy. Sally was rumored to have killed several men, either in self-defense or during disputes over business transactions. Her fierce reputation was such that few dared to cross her, and she carried a pair of pistols and a Bowie knife wherever she went. There were also rumors that she had killed all of her husbands and left no trace. During the Civil War, Sally was suspected of being a Confederate spy and a smuggler, using her extensive network and knowledge of the terrain to support the Southern cause. She transported goods across enemy lines and was believed to have used her ranch as a safe house for Confederate soldiers and sympathizers. Sally Skull's life ended as mysteriously as it was lived. In the late 1860s, she disappeared without a trace. Some theories suggest she was murdered by someone seeking revenge or during a business deal gone wrong. Others believe she simply vanished to escape her past. Her disappearance only added to her legend, leaving behind a legacy of fearlessness and independence. Josephine Sadie Marcus. Josephine Sarah Marcus, also known as Sadie, is best remembered as the common-law wife of Wyatt Earp, one of the most famous lawmen of the American West. Born in Brooklyn, New York in 1861, Josephine came from a middle-class Jewish family. Her life took a turn when she decided to leave home and pursue a career in the theater. Josephine first traveled to San Francisco and then to Tombstone, Arizona, where she initially performed in a traveling theater troupe. It was in Tombstone that she met Johnny Behan, the sheriff of Cochise County. Josephine and Behan became romantically involved, but their relationship was chaotic. During this time, she also encountered Wyatt Earp, who was serving as a deputy U.S. Marshal. Josephine's relationship with Earp grew, leading her to leave Behan and become Earp's companion. Her presence in Tombstone coincided with one of the most famous events in Western history, the gunfight at the OK Corral in 1881. Although she was not directly involved in the gunfight, Josephine's relationship with Earp placed her at the center of the post-gunfight drama and the subsequent grudge, where Earp sought revenge for the murder of his brothers. After leaving Tombstone, Josephine and Wyatt led a nomadic life, moving through various western towns including San Diego, San Francisco, and Nome, Alaska. They invested in mining claims and real estate, experiencing varying degrees of financial success. Throughout their travels, Josephine remained a devoted partner, supporting Wyatt in his adventures and standing by him through numerous challenges. Josephine and Wyatt finally settled in Los Angeles, California, where they lived a relatively quiet life. After Wyatt's death in 1929, Josephine worked diligently to protect and promote his legacy. Josephine Marcus Earp lived until 1944, passing away at the age of 83. Her ashes were buried alongside Wyatt's in Colma, California. Belle Starr. Belle Starr, born Myra Maybelle Shirley Reed in 1848, was one of the most famous female outlaws of the American West. Known as the Bandit Queen, Starr's life was a mix of crime, romance, and legend. She was born into a relatively well-off family in Missouri, but the chaos of the Civil War and the influence of Confederate guerrillas shaped her early life. Starr's first husband was Jim Reed, a Confederate veteran who turned to crime after the war. Together, they lived a life on the run, with Reed engaging in various illegal activities, including horse theft and robbery. After Reed's death in 1874, Starr found herself drawn deeper into the world of outlaws. She married Sam Starr, a Cherokee Indian, and settled in Indian Territory, now part of Oklahoma. The Starr Ranch became a haven for outlaws, and Belle's home was known as a safe place for fugitives from justice. Belle Starr was reputedly involved in horse theft and cattle rustling, and she gained a reputation for her willingness to stand up to the law and for her strategic mind. Belle's boldness and cleverness made her a prominent figure among the outlaws of the West. She was known to carry 2 pistols, often wearing them prominently as a statement of her defiance and readiness to defend herself. Belle's association with famous outlaws like Jesse James and the Younger Brothers only added to her legend. In 1883, both Belle and Sam Starr were arrested for horse theft and sentenced to prison. After serving time, Belle returned to her outlaw ways. However, her luck ran out when Sam was killed in a shootout in 1886, leaving Belle to fend for herself. Belle's life ended violently in 1889. She was ambushed and shot in the back while riding home from a neighbor's house. Her murder remains unsolved, with various theories suggesting she was killed over a land dispute, by a rival outlaw, or even by her own son. Pearl de Vere. Pearl de Vere, born Eliza Martin in 1859, was one of the most famous madams of the American West. Operating in the gold rush town of Cripple Creek, Colorado, de Vere became known for her beauty, business skills, and the luxury of her establishment. Originally from Indiana, de Vere moved to Colorado in the 1880s, attracted by the wealth and opportunities of the mining town. She initially worked as a prostitute, but quickly realized the potential for greater earnings by running her own brothel. In Cripple Creek, she established the Old Homestead House, which became renowned for its luxurious decor and high-class clientele. Pearl de Vere was a businesswoman, understanding that discretion and exclusivity were key to her success. She catered to wealthy miners, businessmen, and even politicians, making sure that her brothel maintained a reputation for quality and discretion. The Old Homestead House was lavishly decorated with imported furnishings, fine wines, and expensive silks, creating an environment that stood out in the rough mining town. Tragically, Pearl de Vere's life was cut short in 1897 when she died from a morphine overdose, a common method of pain relief at the time. Her death was widely mourned, and her funeral was one of the most elaborate the town had ever seen. Pearl's casket was covered in flowers, and the procession included many of her high-profile clients and friends. Pearl de Vere's legacy is one of glamour and success in an often harsh and unforgiving environment. Her ability to create a thriving business in a male-dominated world, combined with her tragic and untimely death, has cemented her place in the lore of the Wild West. The Old Homestead House still stands in Cripple Creek, now a museum. Laura Bullion. Laura Bullion, often called the Rose of the Wild Bunch, was born in 1876 in Knickerbocker, Texas. She grew up in a family with a history of criminal activities. Her father was an outlaw and her mother ran a saloon. This background made her no stranger to the rough life of the American boods. Bullion became romantically involved with several members of Butch Cassidy's Wild Bunch, including Ben Kilpatrick and possibly even Cassidy himself. Her relationships with these outlaws led her to join their ranks, where she participated in various criminal activities, including train and bank robberies. One of Bullion's most infamous exploits was her involvement in the Great Northern Train robbery in 1901. Disguised as a man, she helped the gang steal a substantial amount of money. Her ability to blend in with male outlaws and her willingness to engage in high-risk activities earned her respect and notoriety within the gang. Despite her daring lifestyle, Bullion's luck eventually ran out. In 1901, she was arrested in St. Louis with stolen banknotes of $8,500 from a train robbery. Convicted of robbery, she served 2.5 years in prison. Upon her release, Bullion left her outlaw days behind and tried to live a more conventional life. Bullion eventually moved to Memphis, Tennessee, where she lived under various aliases and worked as a seamstress and interior decorator. She managed to stay out of trouble and remained relatively low-key until her death in 1961. Martha Calamity Jane Canary. Martha Jane Canary, known famously as Calamity Jane, was born in 1852 in Missouri. She was a frontierswoman, sharpshooter, and storyteller who became a legendary figure of the American West. Jane's early life was marked by hardship and adventure. Orphaned at a young age, she took on various jobs, including as a cook, nurse, and ox team driver to support her younger siblings. Calamity Jane gained fame for her alleged activities as a scout for the US Army, where she claimed to have performed acts of bravery, including rescuing a wounded officer. While some of her tales were undoubtedly embellished, her reputation as a tough and fearless woman was well earned. She was known for her proficiency with firearms and her readiness to face danger head-on. One of Jane's most famous associations was with Wild Bill Hickok, another legendary figure of the West. Jane often spoke of their close friendship and even claimed to have been romantically involved with him. Her colorful personality and a liking for storytelling made her a popular figure in the boomtowns and frontier settlements she went to most. Despite her rough exterior, Jane had a compassionate side. She often cared for the sick and needy, particularly during the smallpox epidemic in Deadwood, South Dakota. Her nursing efforts were loved by many, and she was remembered for her generosity and kindness. Calamity Jane's later years were marked by heavy drinking. She continued to perform in Wild West shows, capitalizing on her fame, but her health declined. She died in 1903 and was buried next to Wild Bill Hickok in Deadwood. Della Moore. Della Moore, also known as Annie Rogers or Maud Williams, was a known figure associated with the Wild Bunch gang. Born in 1880, little is known about her early life, but she gained fame as the girlfriend of Kid Curry, one of the most violent members of the Wild Bunch. By 1899, she was working in the famous brothel of Madame Fanny Porter, but by 1900 she left prostitution and helped Curry with his criminal lifestyle. Moore was deeply involved in the outlaw lifestyle, often providing support and assistance to the gang. She was known to have helped Curry and other gang members evade capture by providing them with shelter and resources. Her involvement with the Wild Bunch placed her in the spotlight of law enforcement, but she managed to avoid long-term imprisonment. One of Moore's most famous misdeeds involved her helping Kid Curry escape from jail in Knoxville, Tennessee in 1903. Using her charm, she smuggled a gun to Curry, which he used to overpower the guards and make his getaway. It was known that she has killed at least 3 people during her criminal career and oftentimes used her charm and looks to get away from trouble. Despite her criminal associations, Moore's life after her time with the Wild Bunch remains largely unclear. She eventually disappeared from the historical record, and little is known about her later years. Belle Siddons. Belle Siddons, also known as Madame Vestal or Madame Vestal of Deadwood, was a famous figure in the American Wild West, known for her multiple roles as a Confederate spy, gambler, and brothel owner. Born around 1844 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Siddons' early life remains largely undocumented, but her later adventures became legendary. During the Civil War, Belle Siddons served as a spy for the Confederacy, operating under the alias Belle Bruce. Her intelligence work involved gathering and transmitting crucial information to Confederate forces, often at great personal risk. Siddons' ability to blend into different social circles and her charm made her an effective and valuable asset to the Confederate cause. Siddons' post-war life took her to Deadwood, South Dakota, a mining town known for its lawlessness and rapid growth due to the Black Hills Gold Rush. In Deadwood, she adopted the name Madame Vestal and became a prominent gambler and brothel owner. Her establishment catered to the many miners and fortune seekers who flocked to the area, providing entertainment and companionship in a town where such services were in high demand. Known for her striking beauty and sharp wit, Siddons was a skilled poker player and gambler. Her skill at the card table earned her respect and notoriety among the predominantly male population of Deadwood. Despite the dangerous and often violent environment, Siddons managed to thrive, using her intelligence and charm to navigate the male-dominated world of frontier gambling and vice. Belle Siddons passed away in 1939. At the time where women were not allowed to be bold or do anything odd, these women did the most to show that they didn't fit in the normal crowd. Which woman stuck out to you the most?